Hey there, friends. My name is Jim, and today I'd like to take an look at how the RCMP are currently treating the protesters in Ottawa who are protesting the vaccine mandates for the truckers. So, unfortunately, it looks like it's taken a turn towards the more totalitarian in the last few hours. I showed you a couple episodes ago that there were notices they were passing around saying that everything they were doing is illegal, and they were subject to arrest for being there, and that blocking the roads was illegal, and they would get their possibly get their cars towed, and basically just telling them that they need to disperse legally now because the emergency order is announced. The Emergency Powers Act, which used to be called the War Powers Act, was changed to the Emergency Powers Act. Trudeau actually mentioned in 2012 there was a tweet floating around Trudeau mentioning that when you silence protesters' voice, you have given up the mandate of the people and you should resign. That was his position back 10 years ago. Obviously now it's a little bit different. You know, his mind just changed. He understands now how totalitarian power is what you need in order to restore democracy. Somehow, whatever. So, let's take a look at the Ottawa Police's Twitter account. So, this was a tweet from the Ottawa Police at 9:25 a.m. this morning. Protesters, we told you to leave. We gave you time to leave. We were slow and methodical, yet you were assaultive and aggressive with officers and the horses. Based on your behavior, we are responding by including helmets and batons for our safety. Let's see. Now, obviously, this is the police taking it up a notch. A few nights ago, there was a video going around where there were protesters who had been having a barbecue, and they were just sitting there eating, chowing along, and all of a sudden officers come up with their guns drawn, and the people are sitting there with their forks and knives like, why are your guns drawn on us? And they're like, oh, we need you to disperse. That kind of thing's been going on. Luckily enough, there hasn't been any sort of, well, inciting incident that's escalated necessarily to anything super violent. There was one thing that happened today that got a little bit of attention. I'll be pointing it out in a moment. But let's take a look at how people respond to this on Twitter. So, this person says, it's unfortunate that it has come to this, to those protesting and basically using urban warfare guerrilla tactics to cripple the capital and an elected government. Know this, there are rules of law in this country, and if you think you're above the law, there are consequences. So, this is just an example of somebody who clearly thinks that the authoritarian government is in the right here. I would like to question this individual and ask him what he thinks would be a proper thing to demonstrate for, and why he believes that it's, you know, only his proper things that he thinks should be able to be demonstrated for. You know, who's the moral arbiter of what is allowed and what isn't allowed to be protested about? Because when you start making those determinations, especially when you're government and you start making those determinations, you're necessarily locking people out of the process. People who have a voice and people who mean to be represented when they put their vote in office. And when those people don't get represented, well, the only way they can have a voice is by literally going out into the street and honking their voice. Unfortunately, it's gotten to this point where people believe that their nebulous ideal of whatever a democratic government's existential threat exists is so dangerous that it requires that we tamp down on protesters in the same way that, for instance, Abraham Lincoln did during the Civil War, which I think is a step a little bit too far, but call me old-fashioned. Now, about that incident I was speaking of, there was a lady who, well, let's just take a look at the video and see how what happened earlier with the RCMP. It's a little unfortunate, so sorry if you're, you know, sensitive to that kind of thing. But this is, I think, a 74-year-old woman, the lady who's screaming in this video you're about to see. So let's take a look at how this protest went. This particular part.
This is peace, love, and happiness. Peace. We are in peace.
And happiness. Here we go! Here come the horses! Hold the line!
Peace, love, and happiness.
Okay.
Peace, love, and happiness.
Come on through! Come on through!
And just
What is happening here?
stomp right on top of
What's this lady
that.
doing? Trampling! Trampling horses! Trampling! Stop it! Stop it! Look!
Oh my God!
Oh, they're gone! They just trampled this lady.
Anyways, so when you scream peace, love, and happiness at an authoritarian government and they stomp over you, I said the other day that this could turn into Canada's Tiananmen Square moment, and this is sincerely what I mean, is that if these people were to act, you know, if these people were to be trampled and then act in defense of their own lives, and that were to lead to the RCMP defending themselves in a more straightforward, violent manner, this could have turned into something that in every other time in history would be decried by Western nations as an authoritarian government, eroding the human rights of people and allowing themselves to take over in an authoritarian manner that we just generally don't accept as something that should happen in Western society. And for some reason, this whole COVID thing's got everybody's heads twisted all backwards, thinking that it's okay to give up your rights momentarily while the government reasserts control because of a disease. But what people don't seem to get is that they're never going to give those powers back. After 9/11 happened, when the Twin Towers went down, everybody was like, this is crazy, this is such an emergency situation, and that was a legitimate emergency situation, and we gave government powers that we had never given the government before. We gave them the ability to spy on people and stop us at the airport security abilities, and none of that ever ended, even though it was meant to be just a momentary, give up our rights just for a moment to make sure that we're secure right now, because, there's big bad stuff happening right now, and then later we'll take it all back. And that's exactly the way the government usurps power every time. When they say they're going to take your rights and give them back, why would you trust them when that's happened every time and they've never given those powers back? And now that you're allowing them the power to trample on a lady for protesting, regardless of whether or not you agree with the protest, the fact that you're okay with people getting trampled over protesting peacefully, there's nobody who said this has been not peaceful on the side of the protesters. Whatever you say about their protest, if you are tamping down their ability to protest peacefully, you're going to get that attacked at your group when you feel the need to protest about something that your grievances aren't heard by means of the vote. When eventually the totalitarian government turns the eye of Sauron onto you, maybe the anti-war leftist people, the people who think we shouldn't be bombing brown people in Afghanistan because that's not our place, we shouldn't be the world police, we shouldn't be doing a coup in Venezuela, say the US and Canada got together to do a coup in Venezuela, overthrow the Maduro regime and just insert their own capitalist form of government that would trade with the West and sell out all the oil from under the Venezuelan people. And then you went out to protest against that, and they send horses to trample you, and they invoke emergency war powers in order to stop you when your needs are going to need to be heard in the political sphere. And you are stupid and short-sighted if you don't think those will be pointed at you. But I would like to point out how gleeful the police are taking all this. And this I haven't read yet. I figured I'd take my live reaction while you guys, filmed reaction, but this is the first time I've seen them. I noticed this tweet here by Kian Bexty. I've obtained private chats between RCMP officers. These people are evil. Here's a thread of their private messages. So let's start. See what the RCMP, the people who were hired with Canadian people's dollars, the people, me in Florida, me and my neighbors pay for the money to go into the pockets of the government that pays these people's salary to keep us safe. That's what Canada does. Obviously, that's police everywhere. They pay these people to keep their streets safe. Let's see how these people think about the people who pay them, that being the tax-paying Canadian citizens, like that woman who was just trampled. Let's see what they think about that. Marka, an RCMP officer who participates in the musical ride, thinks that the video of the senior lady being throat stomped by a horse is, quote, awesome. So, let's take a look. Tenzigwink. I think I heard Seth Rogen in the background. On Francophone CBC News, they were saying that the one person got arrested for injuring a police service animal, inserting a bike in his path, tripping him up. You can see the horse trip in the other views. Thankfully, the rider stayed on. Points out that it's at 16 seconds. Very good MPF email about scheduling and extra duty pay came out about the convoy protest. Just watch that horse video. That is awesome. We should practice that maneuver. Agreed. Put me back on gyro and they will be served. Ha ha. That lady pays these people's salaries. One way or another. Income tax, property taxes, even if she doesn't have a job right now and she's getting Social Security, she's still paying these people. And her grandkids and the people that she helped raise are paying for these people. And all she was asking for is peace, love, and happiness. That's all she was asking for. And she deserved to be stomped, and the RCMP officer in this text chain thinks that's awesome, and they need to be practicing that maneuver. For Officer Andrew Nixon, the destruction of democracy is #sweet. Don't kick all of them out until next week group gets their turn. Cheers, crew. Here's to some sweet overtime this weekend for our on-call members. Don't kick all of them out till next week group gets our turn. Yeah, don't kick all of the protesters out until we all get a turn to knock their heads, because we think that they're showing that we aren't the authority, because they think they can order us around. We want to have a chance to knock their heads and take more of their money that they put into the government coffers to pay these people. This is how separated Western society in general has gotten from the idea of government being a service that we provide each other to government being the lords who give us decrees from on high that we are to listen to. That's not the authority we give them when we vote them into office. The authority that we give them is to represent our views in things like where stop signs are supposed to go and what post offices are supposed to be named. We don't give them the authority to decide unilaterally that they can control our lives. We can go out and we can do our business and they can take care of the stupid little government oversight shit. We aren't telling them that they have the ability to say we have to wear a mask when we go outside. That was never agreed upon. And even if we were to say that that's part of the social contract, that would be something that we'd all have to talk about and have a conversation about. And that conversation never happened. The conversation that did happen was the Western societies going 2 weeks to slow the spread. And everybody was like, I guess we'll go along with that. And it's been 400 odd days, 600 days, whatever it's been. It's been long enough. And they didn't have this ability to do this in the first place, is what I'm saying. So, going on. Actually, that may be... Aha! And as I'm recording, that tweet has been removed. How interesting. Wow. Okay, so it's right here. When I started recording this video, I had this already, and then, boom, no longer exists. Huh. He removed it because he had to crop it for Twitter compliance. Okay, so if you're just following this, what happened apparently is that these tweets were deleted because he was warned by Twitter that there were certain things in those images he wasn't supposed to show. And he's cropped them to be Twitter compliant. Let's see what this one says. I agree, very loud down here. Andrew Nixon, I'm signed up. Anyone not signed up, jump on this. Your police officers first and ride members second. Don't cower away when we're needed. Even for one shift can relieve an ops member for one night. Hopefully not Monday. I don't want to be stuck 12 hours with you, Nixie. You are and you will. Damn, hopefully I'm so 11th person asking for it. Who got Sunday night? Me too, see you there. So these are just people organizing for, that doesn't seem necessarily awful. Wow, that really tripped me up. I'm sorry, guys. Well, suffice it to say that the RCMP is gleeful enough about this that they've been saying things that they don't want outed on Twitter, as is verified by what just happened here. In any case, you guys, this was just a quick update on how insanely more militarized the police has gotten in Canada. Again, I believe that there's going to be a Tiananmen-style incident that happens, and that's going to incite something big. We'll see what happens. Again, I like to end these trucker videos by saying if I'm a tiny channel, nobody really watches my videos, but if by any chance one of you guys is out there, one of the truckers happens to see this, thank you. Pray to the Lord Jesus Christ that you remain safe. I pray for you. Just do everything you can to continue fighting this, because the people who are left there are the final front line against the fight for global hegemonic control of us by corporations. Regardless of what anybody thinks about whether or not these vaccines are good or bad, the mandate specifically is those corporations lobbying government to order every man, woman, and child to take their product. That is by definition, by Mussolini's definition, the lucrative merger of corporate and state. That is fascism. So when the government tells you that you have to buy a product from one of these companies, just because there's several different companies, they're all owned by the same groups of people. They're all invested upon by the same groups of people. The government forces you to purchase a certain product, and those people get incredibly rich. And, not for nothing, but if, say, their product, requires a booster shot because the disease is mutating or what have you, that's an entire new stream revenue. In fact, if it gets to the point where you're required a booster shot every year, because the virus is going to mutate every year. Clearly, they're going to have to come out with a new one every year. It's a returning investment for them. It's a returning form of income for them, and it'll never ever end. And these kind of protests are the only way for people to actually get our voices heard, because every legitimate form of grievance systems to tell government your grievances have all been broken down and used specifically in order to push these mandates forward upon people who may or may not agree with them. Until we ever get a formal vote on, you know, what percentage of America, Canada, South America, you know, any of these countries individually of the people, how many of those people believe that everybody should be mandated, then we don't actually know. And even if we were given that opportunity, I wouldn't necessarily agree that you could believe the outcome of that. So, clearly, you are our last hope. And you standing there in the cold in front of the Parliament House in Ottawa, you are the true heroes of our society right now. You will be written in the history books about. And this, regardless of how it turns out, your names will be remembered. So God bless. If you guys like my reporting, feel free to support me in the support links below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow.